Welcome to this episode of the Business Spotlight. Today we are joined by Josh Blackburn from TLC Live. Hi there, Josh.
Hello, how are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining me today.
No problem at all. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great to have you. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, the Business Spotlight is a place for you to go to find out a little bit more about business, and maybe even if you're thinking about getting in business, or even if you're already on that entrepreneurship journey, you're in the right place. So, Josh, if you can just kick things off for us by letting the audience know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please.
Yeah, of course. So, my name's Josh Blackburn. I'm now CEO of TLC Live. TLC Live is an online education company, and I've been with the company since 2013. I joined as a sales exec, and then I've grown with the company. So, for the past couple of years, I've been Chief Operating Officer, and I took over as CEO in January.
Wow, what a journey so far. And what's that, over the last sort of 12, 13 years?
Yeah, about 12 years.
Wow, fantastic. So, I mean, okay, that's brilliant. I mean, and congratulations on the sort of the advancements. That's great. It's always nice to hear as well, especially when that's sort of done within the business from sort of like the ground grassroots up. So, Josh, okay, so just tell me a little bit more about the business and more importantly, what makes you sort of stand out from anybody else out there doing something similar?
Yeah, so the company set up as actually a face-to-face tutoring company back in the kind of mid 2000s, and then we made the jump to being online tutoring in 2011. I joined in 2013. So I think for us, it's been our core business is about providing online tuition, and we only use fully qualified teachers, and that's one of the really core beliefs that we have is that teachers have a skill set that others don't have. And I always use the analogy of, Sir Lewis Hamilton is a fantastic racing driver. I'm not sure how good he'd be as a driving instructor because that's not his skill set. He's a driver. And so that's for us, those teachers are really, really important. Predominantly, historically, what we've done is supported schools and local authorities with online lessons. And for us, it's about taking the student and putting them at the centre of what we do. So, what lessons that student needs for however long it's needed, rather than buying into a package or something like that, which tends to make us stand out from other people out there. It's been a really interesting couple of years though, because we've now taken the same product and we now have an online school that we deliver. And then we've just launched this month an online AI tutor as well. So we're kind of diversifying from the kind of what we have done historically, but always the kind of the center of what we do is qualified teachers and making it right for the student, really.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I mean, some of the stuff that you've mentioned there, Joss, is absolutely phenomenal. And I think, especially for our audience there, I mean, if we can sort of just peel back some of the layers, I mean, just sort of give us, I know it's probably difficult because you've been running the business for quite some time now, but just give us a bit of, I don't know, like a whistle stop tour from when you've joined the business and then that journey and bring us up to date to where we are now with it.
Yeah, so when I joined in 2013, it was a small family-run company, and they'd just kind of gone online. So there may be a kind of a year, 18 months of that. So I joined from a very kind of fresh start. There wasn't a huge amount that was in place at that point, and it was really tough. It was early. I think if I remember back to when I first started, trying to call schools up in like rural Derbyshire and say to them, "Do you want some online tutoring?" and their response was, well, we struggle with internet capability, let alone anything else. But that was what we were doing. I was a salesperson and I was calling up schools and saying, "Would you like some tutoring?" And for the most part, we were looking at pupil premium support. So basically, providing weekly lessons for students who are from kind of low income backgrounds, basically. Um, and I think the really big journey that we've been on and I've been part of is kind of being able to identify where the product could also be used. So in kind of, I think it was about 2015, 2016, we started having some conversations with a local authority, and basically it was for children in care. And it was really interesting because what they were saying is they have children who move frequently, and so face-to-face tutoring, which is historically what they've been using, they struggle with the consistency because give it a couple of weeks and then the student might move and then tutor couldn't get to them. So we kind of tried to work out how we could use our model to support that type of student. And at that point, that was when the company really started to grow, because we were able to take what was quite a restricted model and adapt it, and then we were able to get um, a lot more students onto it, basically, but in a way that worked for them. So it wasn't kind of tying up people for a long time. It was about saying, well, however long you need it for, we'll provide the lessons, and then it'll be stopped. So we went to a very, very ad hoc business model, which has its frustrations in many ways. But at the end of the day, it's what the customer needed and what they wanted. So we then saw quite rapid growth from kind of that point through to COVID. And COVID was a really huge change for many people in many different ways. But for us, it was a double-edged sword, in that we were ready to go as an online educator straight away. So we saw a huge, huge boom, and the government put a lot of kind of subsidy money into tutoring. So that, I think 2021, that type of time, we saw a huge growth, like an extortionate amount of growth, which was fantastic. But what it also meant is that overnight, our unique selling point of being online, everyone was then online, and we were then not interesting from that point of view. So we had to really make sure we were clear on how we were better online, and that can be quite tricky to do unless you start hearing, it's some kind of horror stories. It's quite easy to compare, but once everyone's kind of set up and running, we really had to make sure we had some good examples of how we and our experience lent itself to being better. So that's kind of where we're at now, is that subsidy money has kind of tailed off, which has kind of had its own challenges along the way as well. But we've now kind of in a really stable place in terms of a core business that we run. And that's allowed us to do is to then explore these other opportunities of the online school and AI, which is the most recent one.
Wow, that's a whirlwind journey. So thanks for that. I mean, that's a great insight into the business and sort of like so eloquently put. And I mean, I think there's going to be an awful lot there that's going to resonate with the viewers and the audience, Josh, especially, when you've kind of got to that point, as a lot of us faced when we hit COVID, and sort of like, some of the businesses sort of succeeded, some struggled, and some didn't even unfortunately make it through. So yeah, thanks for being so open and sort of like letting us into that sort of world of what you were going through and what you've achieved since then as well. So thank you for that. So that kind of brings us up to speed to where we are now then, Josh. So what would you say? I mean, we're kind of getting into 2025 now. So what sort of things have you got planned for the future, and what sort of challenges do you think you're going to face going forward?
So our big thing at the moment is moving into the private market, so B2C rather than B2B. And that's because historically it's been kind of almost too big a project for us to take on. Where we're at now, we've got a really stable base. In terms of the schools and local authorities, there's a lot more um, bureaucracy is probably the wrong word for it, but that kind of legislation, more kind of awareness around it, and more hoops that we're having to jump through in order to make sure we are able to and then successfully delivering kind of what we have already done. So for us, it's about also saying, well, this is the right time for us to start talking to parents, saying we can provide the traditional tutoring, but doing it online in the same way, the same basis of qualified teachers. Whenever people want the lessons, we'll get those booked in for them. And then that leads itself into the online school and AI as well, which are also, for the most part, going to be B2C focused. And so we're trying to really move into that area, whilst also, obviously, most importantly, keeping our core business happy and successful. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken from this journey is, in order to stay still, you still have to be updating and moving with the times, even just to keep your core happy. And it's quite hard, I think, as a balance to make sure you're not changing too much too often, whilst also making sure you're sticking ahead of the curve, without making too many knee-jerk decisions.
Yeah, I think that's key, isn't it? I mean, we've all got to evolve and change with the times, but at a certain pace that's right for not only you, but your business and your clients, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, especially when you've got other um, factors influencing that. So for us, kind of our customer is the person that pays the bill, which would be the school or the local authority. But we also have the student to keep happy, because if they're not happy, then they're not coming back and they're giving us bad feedback. And then in most parts, you've got the parent who's also involved in that discussion. So although we've got one customer, we kind of then have three consumers that we also need to make sure each of them and then their own needs are met, because otherwise we're going to end up with negative feedback. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure we can keep delivering really good lessons for every student that we can.
Yeah, no, that's brilliant. I mean, that's a really great insight again. So another one that will definitely resonate with a lot of the audience. Thanks, Josh. So, I mean, you've been on a fantastic journey so far, Josh. And so, sort of on that note, what would you say as the business owner or the CEO, should I correct myself to say, as the CEO of the business, what would you say has been one or some of your biggest lessons today that really stands out for you?
I think it's for me, it's always been about keeping the customer first and really focusing on every decision is what does that mean to them? And that might not be that it's something that you should do or you shouldn't do, but it's the impact that it might have on them. Yeah, and it can be really little things like just kind of the way lessons are booked in or the timing of lessons. For example, we can book lessons in whenever we want to because we have the teacher base, but to some extent, it makes it easier for managing resource to kind of have a timetable. But making sure that that resonates with the customer is quite difficult because, for a parent, you can remember you've got a lesson at 10 o'clock, but having a lesson at 10 past 10 makes it a little bit more difficult to remember that type of thing. So it's all these little things that we need to make sure at every point we're just reflecting on what it means for the end user and the customer. And some of those things I think it's been quite easy to do, and others it's been a real challenge. But I think for me, if I did this again, that would be the main thing that I'd take away and say, no, make sure at every stage you do that. And then the other thing that I think I tend to try and focus in on is um, it can be, you need to take the emotion out of situations. If someone's unhappy or a customer's unhappy or something's not going to plan, you kind of need to take the emotion out of the situation, deal with it, and then when you reflect on it, you can decide whether it's something that you should be frustrated with or something that you need to embrace and be positive about, because that way you're not kind of skewing what you're doing. You're keeping the problem at the center of what you're trying to solve rather than the emotion behind it.
Wow, that's really insightful and very philosophical. I mean, you're sort of like going into, the logic brain and the sort of left sort of side of the brain, the right side of the brain, the emotional decisions and the logical decisions we make. I'm loving that. That's brilliant. Thanks, Josh. Great lesson there. Thank you. So, I mean, on that note, I mean, one of the things that I often find, and I think this is a great question to ask, but Josh, if we were able to sort of go back in time and we was able to go back and visit an 18-year-old Josh, but with the knowledge that you've got now, but the limitation is that you only get to give yourself one piece of advice, one golden nugget, what would it be?
It's an interesting one because I think it's something that I got told when I was 18 or 19 by a lecturer at university, and I don't think it really sank in until now almost. And I was very fortunate with my university that I had a great bunch of lecturers who had lived and breathed business. It was a hospitality degree, so they lived and breathed in the business in hospitality world. And one of them said in our kind of freshers meeting, they said, your hospitality students, you need to make sure that you work hard and you play hard. And it's such a cliche, and I think everyone focuses on the play hard. And actually, it's about that balance between both of saying, right, I am working hard and this is a hard job. And what I do, kind of, especially at this level, it gets sucked into every bit of your life. And that's part of what you have to do. You have to work hard for it. And on the flip side, you need to make sure that you have a time to play and to enjoy yourself and to switch off from that. And that's a really big challenge. And especially for me, I find that because I'm so new to it, I haven't got into a routine yet, and those kind of things that hopefully will come with time. But I think, I think it is really, it's such a cliche, but work hard, play hard in balance is the best piece of advice that I'd give myself again, if you like.
Yeah, no, and I think that's great. And I mean, some sage advice there. And I think, like you say, you was given that advice back then, but I think we're all probably guilty of being given some great advice and not always taking it at the time we're giving it, but maybe weeks, months, or even years later, that advice kind of starts to resonate, and it's that aha moment, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, well, look, thanks for that insight again, Josh. Another one that I'm sure is going to resonate not only with our 18-year-old audience, but probably some of us that are a little bit older than that too. So thank you for that. So, Josh, I mean, you clearly sort of love what you do, and why wouldn't you? I mean, you make such a difference out there doing what you do. But what is it that what is it that really sort of fires you up and inspires you to sort of do what you do day in, day out, week in, week out?
I think what we do at the end of the day is very simple. We take a teacher and we put them in front of a student, and that's kind of it for the most part. And how it's used or why it's used, that differs. And I think for me, it's about taking that product and seeing what other value we can get out of it and almost squeeze out of it. Um, some of the kind of positive stories we've had from students, and it's such a simple thing. It's this student has kind of gone from not talking to a teacher through to attending all their lessons, or they've gone on to sit GCSEs, and that was not on the not on the cards for them. We've had students that have got a grade 9 at GCSE, and for medical reasons, didn't look like that would happen. And all those positive stories are kind of one of the reasons that kind of you keep doing this. But I think also it's about saying, well, if something so simple can achieve that, what else can we get? And kind of almost what else can we achieve for the next generation of students using the same thing, but just by making us better. So for me, that's kind of it's the challenge of improving, which I think gets me out of bed every day.
Yeah, wow. That's a great share, and yeah, quite an insight there as well. So thanks for that, Josh, to open up and sort of let us into that world. So, Josh, there's going to be a lot of people that are watching or even listening to this, and they're going to want to find out more about you, and they're definitely going to want to find out more about the business. So, I mean, is there any sort of news that you want to share, or just let us know the best way to get in touch with you and the business?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, the website tlclive.com takes you through to our main tutoring website and the school kind of resources on there as well. We've then launched tlclive.ai, which is our AI tutor side. Um, that is kind of brand new, and so we're kind of really trying to push that out at the moment. So if anyone is interested in having an explore of that, if you use the discount code, I think I've put it as podcast1 with a capital P, they'll get you a month's trial on there if you want to have a go on that. And reach me on LinkedIn, Josh Blackburn. I'm available. If anyone wants to reach out and have a chat or a coffee or a digital meeting, I'm always happy to speak to people.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, that's a great sort of like insight. And you mentioned that there's a little offer there as well. And was it podcast one?
Podcast1 with a capital P.
Podcast one with a capital P. Brilliant. Josh, thank you so much for being our guest on the Business Spotlight today.
A pleasure to be here. It's been really, really good fun. I've enjoyed it, and hopefully it's useful to someone out there.
It 100% will be, Josh. And for all of our audience and the viewers and the listeners, that's a wrap. That is the Business Spotlight. We'll see you all again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.